Okay, good evening, brothers. Isn't it a beautiful day out? Well, I want to start today by reading a scripture that highlights the topic I'm going to be speaking about tonight. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Okay, it says, now the Lord is that Spirit, and where that Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So that's going to be my topic tonight, is going to be about liberty, biblically speaking. What is liberty?
Freedom.
Well, the dictionary has three different definitions. The first being the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. The subcontext on that also says it's the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. And another one says that it's a right or privilege, especially a statutory one. The second definition is the power or scope to act as one pleases. And the third one is a presumptuous remark or action. There's 25 different scriptures in the Bible that use the word liberty. We don't have time to go through every one of them tonight, but we're going to go with a few of them. Let's go to James chapter 1, verse 25. James, oh James, where are you? Okay. All right, verse 25 says, but whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. Now, these next two scriptures I'm going to go over are the actual boundaries or limits that God places on our liberty. The first one's going to be 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 16. And that says, as free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as the servants of God. Okay, now let's go to Galatians 5:13. And you're going to see there's a common denominator here with all these scriptures regarding liberty. Galatians 5:13.
Page 301.
Not in this Bible. And the pages are sticking. I got it. Okay. 5:13 says, for brethren, ye have been called unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. Now, these two last scriptures are unique in the fact they give us a boundary or limit to liberty. It says, use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another. Meaning that liberty is not to be used as an excuse for sin. Yes, you have the free will and can choose to sin, but these scriptures show us that there is a limit to which liberty can be practiced. Now, here's a subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about or even fathom, but what are we to do when government seeks to take away our liberty? Does the Bible say that Christians are to obey authority no matter what? Never question the motives of authority? And to just blindly accept whatever dictate the authority might come up with? The Bible is full of accounts where people stood in the absolute defiance of tyrannical authority, and God accepted such defiance as justified and good. The first being, and I don't have time to go every single example like verbatim because we don't have time and I'm already going to take a bunch of time. So, the first account being in Exodus of the Egyptian midwives. Now these weren't even God's people, but Pharaoh had ordered them to go and kill all of the male Hebrew babies. But they actually chose not to. Not only chose not to, but as in Exodus chapter 1 verse 19 says, they actually went and directly lied to Pharaoh's face and gave up an excuse as to why they didn't kill the babies. And God not only rewarded them by multiplying their children and making them mighty, but he also built them houses. So that goes to show you that, there's certain instances where, we're required by God not to listen to tyrants. So Daniel chapter 6 verses 6 and 9 gives the account of the king that declared no one could pray to any deity but the king. What did Daniel do? He went to the largest window in his home and he prayed to the one and only true God, got on his knees in front of the window, put his face right in the window, and prayed to God in front 3 times that day, and so everybody in the city of Jerusalem could see that he was praying to God in direct defiance of the king. And he was hoping that everybody would see. That's why he did it. Now in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23, Moses' parents disobeyed the Pharaoh, the king, and hid Moses as a baby from the king and said they were not afraid of the king's command. Acts chapter 5, verse 28 through 29 says the apostles were ordered to stop preaching about Jesus, and their response was, we ought to obey God rather than men. Matthew 2, 1 through 11 says the Magi were warned by God himself, so God spoke to them and told them not to obey King Herod. So they did not obey King Herod, and they did not give up the location of baby Jesus as commanded by Herod. 2 Corinthians 11 verses 32 through 33 says Paul avoided government officials who were seeking to arrest him by being lowered down the side of the city wall in a basket. He is also the man who wrote Romans chapter 13. Romans chapter 13 does not teach that government has unlimited authority, nor does it teach unlimited submission. The Apostle Paul was clear on the subject in Romans chapter 13 as to what the proper function of government is in God's eyes. In Romans chapter 13, verses 3 and 4, it says, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is a minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is a minister of God, an avenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Now in this country, who is the authority? Is it the president? Is it the Congress? Is it the courts? Is it the governors? It is actually none of those. None of those are authority in this country. And would you be surprised that the supreme authority in the country literally fits in your back pocket? Okay? It is called the Constitution. Who does the Constitution say is the authority in this country? The very first 3 words of it, of the preamble, are loud and clear, bold print. We the people. Okay. It also says that our government is a civil servant to us. And was put. Oh, no. Let's do it now. Okay. Where's that? Okay. I lost my place. Okay. Okay, it says was put here as civil servant to us and was put there by us to protect our liberty. Did you know that the Constitution, and I just want to make a disclaimer here, this is not to radicalize anybody or provoke anybody to any kind of extremism. But I have to make that, because I'm telling you. Yeah, so the Constitution actually commands us to alter or abolish the government when it no longer serves us and wishes to resort to absolute despotism. Are we not seeing that today? I'm not calling for that just yet. But one can feel the ground shaking, so to speak, with the corpses of our ancestors rolling in their graves for what we currently are allowing the government to do to us. Remember, in this country, we the people are the kings and the rightful owners and masters of this land. And we put government in place to protect our rights and serve us. Over the last century of constant indoctrination in our schools, brainwashing by the mainstream media, and living in a state of constant and controlled fear, the majority of the country is scared of our government, but thinks they have no choice but to obey it because of a misunderstanding of Romans chapter 13. Paul said that government is to reward the good and punish the bad, but what do we see today? I mean, you look at the January 6th people, they're all still sitting rotting in jail for trespassing, if you can even call that. They were let in by the police. But yeah, it's the absolute opposite, and it punishes the good and rewards the bad. Not in all cases, but a lot. And the instances where this is evident is going to increase in number as time goes on. Again, let none of my words here tonight be taken as a call to trigger-happy radicalism or extremism. That is absolutely not what I'm advocating. Nor does the Bible call to, but the Bible is very clear on matters that are in conflict with our relationship with God. We are to obey God rather than men. Our founders agreed, which is why they wrote the Constitution. Not to restrain the people, but to restrain the government. Thomas Jefferson said it best: resistance to tyranny is obedience to God, and I second that. And let me expound on that and leave you with a quote of my own. If you are not resisting, you are not obeying.